Taoiseach, the science is absolutely clear. Coal, gas and oil must be left in the soil. And yet at COP it's clear that the interests of profit of oil-producing countries are currently coming first, and the needs of humanity are being forgotten. The COP process is failing. It's why I asked you earlier about whether Ireland would support a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. You responded earlier kind of seeming to suggest, why have you been presented with a treaty? Why haven't Ireland been involved in negotiating that treaty? But this is precisely at an early point. There is no text of a treaty that Ireland's being asked to sign. Ireland's being asked to commit to the 3 pillars of a non-proliferation fossil fuel treaty, of non-proliferation, of fair phase-out and just transition, and to work with other countries, a series of small island nations, Latin American countries, the European Parliament, the World Health Organization have signed up for such a treaty to work with those to work on such a treaty modelled on the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Will the government do that?
Deputy Allen.
Deputy Sullivan referred to resistance to change from oil and gas companies and oil and gas producing countries. And I would agree with what was mentioned by Deputy Farrell, Deputy Durkin and indeed Deputy Sullivan in terms of our own responsibility to scale up renewables. We're at about 40% of the electricity we produce being renewable now. We're aiming for about 80% by 2030. We think that is achievable, and it needs to be done not just through offshore wind and onshore wind, but also solar and battery storage and interconnection as well. But we shouldn't underestimate the challenge in getting that done. The energy systems we've built up were built up over generations, and we're going to try and change them in a relatively short period of time. And that is going to be a challenge for every country, not least us. Deputy Barry asked about expectations on a final agreement. The negotiations have entered a critical phase as we move to conclude the first cycle of the global stocktake, which is assessing progress made in implementing the Paris Agreement and provides the context for countries to update their greenhouse gas reduction commitments and to agree a new collective climate finance goal for next year. The latest negotiating text published yesterday isn't acceptable, and the text on fossil fuel in particular is weak and unacceptable to us, the Americans and others. We want to see ambitious language on fossil fuels. Global emissions need to peak by 2025 and we need to reach net zero by 2050. So therefore the phase out of fossil fuels in a just and orderly way is essential. While abatement technologies can play a role, but they shouldn't be limited to those sectors where but these will be limited to those sectors where it's hardest to reduce emissions, like steel and concrete, for example. Negotiations are continuing, and I hope that progress can be made and an ambitious outcome achieved. The outcome must include ambitious action on mitigation before and after 2030, on adaptation as well, and on implementation, including aligning global finance flows with these goals.
Thank you.